Hello, everybody. FBI here, I here, and welcome back to another Dungeons How to Be Successful series. And if you have been watching this series at all, then you probably have realized in the last part we failed. And as I said before, failure is part of the game, and unfortunately will happen. And when it does happen, well, there's not a whole lot you can do, except, of course, try to start again and, pick it up again from there. But generally, the main reason we failed the last time was because I unfortunately just did not put enough time into getting little snots to help us out with gold and just dungeon management. Which, as I said before, it does happen. And when it does happen, there's not a whole lot you can do except, of course, take it by the chin, if you will, and just realize that, we made an error and now we have to, unfortunately, make it work out in some degree. But with that having said, that's also meaning that, generally there is now a point of us have to, make things work again and start things anew, if you will. But, that's part of the learning experience in many ways. But now we're at a point where I'm going to start, actually, if you will, starting to actually look towards making our next faction as well as upgrades. Because, let's face it, if any of you are watching or have been watching the series, you already know that, getting the next faction / getting a getting dungeon traps and stuff ready to go, it's all part of the experience / getting prepared in the game. And that's something that we have to start looking towards generally. Which, of course, is the next step in many ways to improving our dungeon. So, for now, I'm going to go ahead and do our normal thing. As you probably saw, I don't have to explain the skill tree again, but I will slightly. And that is, we just unlocked the Vortex, which will unlock us to be able to use demons. As well as we're now preparing ourselves for, of course, the very first, if you will, attack / defense of our island of evilness. But in general, we're also preparing ourselves for the very first bit of spells that we can do. And this is why it's always good to make sure that in a sense, you have little snots to help you out during the during the defense / during the situations that you'll need them in. But like I said, obviously at this point in time, the dungeon is going to become a lot bigger, if you will, and also become a lot more crowded. So, of course, being able to make for the most of it is always the situation. At this point in time, though, the main idea would be to prepare ourselves a guard area / guard room, but we also should prepare ourselves if you would, place for us to protect our assets. And we're getting our first attack here. And of course, as you can see, things are fairly easy. But yes, at this point, we're preparing defense to protect our dungeon. Obviously, right now, I just sent our people out to, of course, protect us from the inevitable Island of Evil attack. And, of course, the people who are trying to stop us from gang evilness. But with that being said, we just found a new area. And, ooh, quick hit those. I don't know if we want to use this right now, but I'm going to go ahead and do my little slots favor by bringing it down to them. But yeah, that's one of the main things you gotta consider and think about. It's just where everything is going to go and how you can develop your overall, if you will, dungeon. At this point, though, like I said, one of the main ideas and one of the main thoughts would be to ensure that we are able to kind of protect ourselves slash, protect our dungeon, which is why I like making a trap room slash making traps and also having the mana and stuff for spells is going to become an ideal thing to have going forward. But of course, protection will always be something that will, I would say, come as a first and foremost to degree, but also just generally as a way to ensure that, things are going to go well, if you would. You don't need a whole lot, though, of course. Just remember that in general and in its entirety, you really don't need a whole lot to really protect yourself. And obviously, you should also make sure that to a degree you have ways of being able to maximize space. And if this means like in some areas some rooms lead to other rooms, then so be it. It's perfectly fine. And it'll help you possibly in the long run. But like I said, there's going to be a lot of, mix and matching and just general things that you'll have to consider going forward in order to ensure, if you will, the best potential. Back to Dungeon with ya. I don't know why Tanya was still there, but hey. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's just something that you'll have to consider and you'll have to think about and you'll have to, of course, make yourself aware of. And obviously, like it is, in the situations, it all depends. I mean, for many people, I would recommend getting like what I got right now, which is the Gobbler bot, the guard room, the dungeons thing, and then of course start researching, if you will, up towards up towards not only your Titans, which will be your if you will, your protection in many ways, but also look towards upgrading towards getting more getting of course more people on hand, because eventually, of course, you're going to eventually get the crypt, which the crypt will allow you to basically, if you will, continue forward with of course resurrecting the horde and your converted heroes over time. And that's the main idea slash plot I would recommend you go towards, because generally if you get to the point where you can resurrect your horde and stuff, it will make it to where your people are no longer going to just flat out have to be replaced, and you can start having stronger units, stronger people, and just generally more out of the situation and entirely. But I mean, that's something that you'll have to really consider yourself and just generally think for yourself to figure out if it works for you. Because again, it may not work for you initially. I'm going to tell you that in my opinion, in my case, sometimes things just aren't going to work out, and that's okay. But I would definitely recommend at this point in time you start upgrading your spells slash getting spells, because eventually you're probably going to want to get the succubus and you're probably going to get the graveyard. But I mean, at this point, the main plan would be to start building up your dungeon's defenses, because at this point in time, there's going to be people like these guys, like coming in right now, that are going to basically start trying to cause havoc to your dungeon. And of course, if you do need to alert the people, you can always just hit the drum by right clicking, and that'll gong everyone to the fact that there are enemies here. And yeah, those are some things that you can do to effectively become better overall and just effectively become at a point where the dungeon game or the game no longer really has you on the back foot. But with that having said, I mean, this will be a bit of a quicker video than usual. And at this point in time, I would recommend you start improving your magic, getting your magic up, your mana shrine, and increasing your orc hideout if you have an orc already. If you start with like demons or even just skeletons, which is completely up to you if you decide to do it that way. But if you decide to do that, then I would recommend you start trying to increase that as well. But the last thing I would do is increase your workshop production if you can, because obviously you're going to want to make sure that your workshop is creating toolboxes as much as possible. And the last thing, of course, would be to get the Tinker's Cave and try to start upgrading your Tinker's Cave. This way, you can start building traps and whatnot for your people. But with that having said, and with that being said overall, those are some of the main tips that I would recommend going forward. Don't forget to continuously upgrade your little slots as possible, because again, as your dungeon gets bigger, and it will get bigger, unfortunately, so does the need slash demands that your people want, in a sense. And that's something that you'll have to abide to in many ways. But with that having said, I mean, just maximize your dungeon as much as you can. Try to figure out how you can best optimize things. And, I mean, you know, in my opinion, stuff like the Vortex doesn't need multiple rooms, but you will have to continuously increase the size of it over time. But hopefully these tips have helped you, and this has helped you become a little bit more successful over time with dungeons. And with that having said, don't forget to give this video a like. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, because by subscribing, you will get the latest updates on when I go live, or not when I go live, but when my next video comes out, and sometimes when I go live, but also just generally when things are happening. And until the next one, everybody, this is FAI signing out and saying thanks for joining me, thanks for stopping by, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see y'all in the next one. But until then, everybody, farewell, everyone.